We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
Nothing on the Catch and Early Buzz today, Mike. I was thinking maybe, do you have a story? You know, we haven't done a story on this pod. You know, can I celebrate this? I wasn't sure if I was going to mention on the pod, but there have been a lot of Vinny G stories on the podcast lately. Yeah. My dad, who, if you've been listening to this podcast for the last 100 episodes, you've probably heard some crazy stories about my dad, but there wasn't a lot of stories. My dad was in jail for like his 7th DUI. And he just got out, 90 days. They gave him 6 months, got out in good behavior. Vinny G is out and about. He's on probation. He's not without a license, but Father Gayle is back. And, you know, he said he's going to turn a corner here. I don't know if that's going to happen.
He said he's sober, which is a good thing.
He's sober. He stayed sober in jail, which is hard to do. People who don't know about jail, it is like almost harder to stay sober in jail than it is on the outside because of how much there is. Like, people think there isn't access to these things in jail. That's not fucking true. Like, they're making alcohol, it's called like Pruno, in jail all the time. My dad's really good at it. If you need a lesson, I can get a YouTube video of that from my dad if we need it. But Vinny G's out of jail. We're celebrating that here on the podcast. I haven't had a lot of stories. The DUI story, I don't even think I can tell because like it's kind of fucked up. But he got out. No one got killed. No one got immediately hurt. But another DUI for fucking Vinny G. Dude's got eight DUIs.
Oh my God.
It's insane.
That is insane.
I've never chalking him up.
I've never drunk. That's it's good to be out.
And it's good to be out. It's free. It's free. He might be coming to Cincinnati soon. We'll try and get him on the pod. Just kidding. That's all I have for the Catch and Early Buzz, though. Emphasis on buzz. AFC and NFC North offseason needs and game plans. I want to get ahead of something. I was reading the YouTube comments. Appreciate everyone who watches the show on YouTube. Over 100 comments on the last video where we did AFC and NFC West. They're like, man, the entire discussion for the Las Vegas Raiders was just about Derek Carr. It was just about Derek Carr arguing back and forth, and we didn't really highlight like other needs for this team. My thought is throw Derek Carr out the window, whether you keep him or whether you don't, whether you extend him or you don't. He's probably going to play for this team in 2022. Just getting ahead of this. I think their biggest need is receiver. Like, even with Henry Ruggs gone, like, they were too often going to Zay Jones in the crunch time, right? Like, they're too often going to like tier 3, tier 4 wide receivers in these clutch moments, specifically in that Cincinnati Bengals playoff game. And yes, they have Hunter Renfrow. Yes, they have Darren Waller. But that entire podcast episode we talked about, you need multiple offensive playmakers, and they just don't have that. And Hunter Renfrow, I like as a cherry on top, right? Like a piece of the puzzle that you have in addition to like this alpha 10, 12, 15 targets a game type of receiver. That's what they need, right? Like, they need to go get a guy that is Derek Carr's number one receiver on the outside. That, in addition to continue to retool this defense and add to this offensive line, is probably their biggest needs.
Yeah, the thing is, we don't advocate when you're kind of in that tier of team that I mean, I guess they did get to the playoffs last year, but I think any Raiders fan with any sense of honesty looking in the mirror will say this is not a Super Bowl contender. I don't care if we blow our wad in free agency. Like, you're not that close. So you need to draft well. You need to make shrewd decisions. And so when we say you're not one of those teams that is in realistic contention, it's when we don't advocate for signing a bunch of free agents. So your free agent plan is to make better draft decisions. Say basically a free agent plan, because you just had 2 years worth of drafts almost go down the toilet in terms of how much they're impacting your roster in the 2019 and the 2020 drafts, with 5 first-rounders doing nothing for you. So you need to get that young talent. Now, they do have some guys. They have Max Crosby, Hunter Renfrow. They have guys in there, but you need to, like, that is still not enough to be competing with top dogs in that division either.
Yeah. And I think the other part that we tried to mention when we were having the Derek Carr discourse was I think they need to eliminate every excuse for why Derek Carr is not, playing like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And that, again, is adding a receiver, ensuring that this offensive line can keep him upright and adding playmakers where they can. Like if the defense is the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL, it's okay. You're not competing for a Super Bowl in a division that could have Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert. I'm sorry. Like there's a reason they have the 12th longest odds to win the AFC next year. They're not ready to compete. This roster isn't good enough. But if you can come out of this season with like a lot of confidence, I'm talking like overwhelming confidence that this pairing of Josh McDaniels and Derek Carr is going to work, actually be formidable as a top 10 offense, top 8 offense in the NFL, that is worth everything next year. You could go 0-17, but if you feel that overwhelming confidence that Derek Carr is going to be the guy, then you win that season. All right, now let's get to
I don't think you could go 0-17.
No,
I'll
you
just
can't.
say that.
I don't think those are mutually exclusive, right? You can't go 0-17 and then come out like, no, but Derek Carr looked good. Yeah. Derek Carr doesn't throw for
what a career year for Derek Carr.
All right, AFC and NFC North offseason needs game plan, starting with the Cincinnati Bengals. Before we get into the Bengals, I have to represent this podcast. The proud podcast sponsors, the presenting sponsors of this show are DraftKings. DraftKings is a sponsor for PFF, an official sports betting partner of the NBA as well. Hoops fans, the latest offer from DraftKings Sportsbook is too good to pass up. I'm talking between the legs, 360 windmill good. That sentence... that felt weird coming out of my mouth. Windmill. I'm talking between the legs, 360 windmill good. New customers can bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still take your shot at a big payday. Man, the wordplay today. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Basketball Contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Are you a big NBA fan? I don't think you are you?
I was going to ask you, are you in the PFF Basketball League?
I'm not in the PFF Basketball League.
I am, but yeah.
I decided against that. When I should
that's
be,
probably a smart decision.
You guys need a scrappy guy off the bench, let me know, but I'm also like pretty terrible at basketball. So. But I do like the NBA. I remember in peak COVID betting a ton of Damian Lillard over points total props and having a ball with that. I think betting on the NBA is a lot of fun. Betting on props and those things are a lot of fun. And if you want to do that, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF at just $1 on any NBA team and get $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code PFF at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 years or older. Minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for a full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Man, I am foaming at the bit. Foaming at the mouth?
Chomping at the bit.
Chomping at the bit and foaming at the mouth for when Ohio legalizes sports betting. Because when they do, I'm going to lose a lot of money. I can't wait to do it. All right, Cincinnati Bengals. Right now, in the NFC North, they lead all in odds to win the AFC at third. They were the third-ranked team, according to DraftKings, to win the AFC in 2022-2023. Their offseason resources rank according to Arjun Menon. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter, where he looks at draft capital, cap space, movable cap space, etc. They rank fifth. Like, they have opportunity, man. Not only do they lead the division in odds to win the AFC, they also rank fifth in offseason resources rank according to PFF. $57.3 million in cap space, and our biggest need for them, it's one. Offensive line.
Quarterback. Oh, what?
You need to add to this offensive line. There is a member that hasn't officially entered free agency for the Cincinnati Bengals. I know we're going to talk about him a little bit later, but someone that they could potentially sign on the cheap to play left guard for them. That is a small tease to another segment that we have coming down the road here. But Cincinnati Bengals, the biggest need is obvious. Offensive line. Notable free agents, Quentin Spain, a.k.a. the guy who gave up the sack that lost him the Super Bowl. Jesse Bates is also a free agent. They probably need to get on that sooner rather than later. Eli Apple is a notable free agent. I highly doubt he comes back to Cincinnati after getting fried both on the football field and on social media. And some others too, though. Larry Ogunjobi, BJ Hill, and Riley Reif, even if they do add upgrades to those positions, I don't think they are any to scoff at, right, in terms of bringing those guys back. I would look to bring back Bates, maybe even Ogunjobi, BJ Hill, and Riley Reif as they move forward, especially with the cap space that they do have. Another potential cut, a failed free agent signing in the Duke Tobin era is Trey Waynes. If they cut him, they save $10.8 million. That's probably going to happen, right? They've had a lot of success with Chidobe Awuzie, Mike Hilton, obviously. They're going to need to find a replacement for Eli Apple, but I don't think Waynes is that guy. What is your move to make for the Cincinnati Bengals?
Yeah, I obviously tag Jesse Bates at the very least. You got to have him back on the roster. He was a massive part to that run. But the whole sort of off-season rank of 5th, the $57 million cap space, this is why, if you're a Bengals fan, and obviously there's no like guarantees you get back there, but like this is why you're so encouraged. You just made the Super Bowl, and you're literally a kid in the candy shop still this offseason with what you can do to transform this roster. You can do a Chargers-esque overhaul of this offensive line, a Chiefs-esque overhaul of their offensive line if you want to. And the move to make is to do that. That is the move I'm making. Now, obviously, I would like to add a cornerback to this roster as well. I think going out and signing a veteran like Stephon Gilmore, like Patrick Peterson, maybe even Bryce Callahan, like someone to put some competency that's also not going to tweet a lot at the end of the season is someone I would like to have on this roster. And if you're the Bengals right now, you're kind of that destination team. You can attract the Richard Shermans of the world, the guys who are ring chasing to get that 1-year deal, 2-year deal, because they want. Maybe even Casey Hayward. That's a guy I would love to have in Cincinnati if I'm the Bengals. So I think that's where you go at cornerback, but then really shoot the moon for your offensive line, whether it's trading for Laramie Tunsil, whether it's signing Teron Armstead, whether it's both of those moves. I think you have to make, like I said, like what the Chiefs did or like what the Chargers did in multiple big moves, and then maybe even like some small moves as well. Because again, if you had an offensive line against the Rams, you win that game. They just do. They would have won that game. So, but again, it's not like it's one guy. It is 4 pieces of your offensive line that are well below average. You can rely on your left tackle right now. That's about it. So it's going to take a lot, but I think they need to do a lot, and they will, and have the room to do so.
There'll be also, I think, members of the who is getting cut from other places, right? Like there's going to be a lot of cuts along the offensive line for other teams in the NFL, like looking to pick up some of these guys that maybe were too expensive for other teams and they can't afford, picking those guys up off of the cut wire or whatever it is, entering free agency maybe unexpectedly, I think is a huge move. Like you have guys that are available, Ryan Jensen, Brandon Scherf, Dwayne Brown, Connor Williams, like all of these guys, Andrew Norwell, Morgan Moses, Eric Fisher, like don't stop, like just keep going. I don't think they can, the wrong thing would be we only need a guy, like one, like a Teron Armstead. The right thing would be, hey, go get like 3 or 4 of these guys. And even if not all of them, even if they are some depth pieces, guys like I don't know, looking at Trent Brown maybe is an option. The Brian Allen,
just like a Riley Reef from last
yeah, exactly.
Kind of
like you need to go bring in.
Move.
You're not going to solve this, and I know the joke right now in the draft is like go draft like 15 offensive linemen. You're not really going to solve this with rookies, right? You're going to solve this with veterans, and that's what they need. They're in a window right now with Joe Burrow on a rookie contract to go win a Super Bowl, as we saw them nearly do, obviously, a few days ago. I think going into free agency and attacking all these guys, any and all, being the first on the phone with Armstead, Orlando Brown Jr., Ryan Jensen, Brandon Scherf, a lot of these guys get tagged, and I get that, but go make a play.
Well, I think the move, they are going to be linked to Laramie Tunsil. I don't think the Texans, with where they're at, want his $26 million cap hit. If he goes to the Bengals, it's going to be far less than that because the Texans will have to eat that bonus anyway. So it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of $18 million over the next 2 years each year, which is very doable with the Bengals cap situation. And so a first rounder for a guy like that to give you that assuredness on the blind side, obviously you'd probably move Jonah Williams into right tackle, which he played at Alabama's first 2 years, I believe, maybe first 1 year at Alabama. I can't remember now. But that's a move I would make. In the Bengals situation, with where they're at, with Joe Burrow and his contract, 2 more years of very cheap, 1 more year of fairly cheap compared to the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFL. I am making that move because that 31st overall pick, you can draft an offensive lineman there. It might not be good until year 3. And then that's it. Like your window's toast. So you need immediate help. You need free agents. You don't save the draft for trades like this with where you're at in the life cycle. So
hell, I think we've seen mock drafts. So you've even mocked Zion Johnson, the Boston College interior offensive lineman of the Cincinnati Bengals. And while he's like a pro-ready guard, I think he was the guy that everyone talked about. Like if you're ready to start a guard from this class, he's that guy. Like if you want to start him day one, but I don't even think just that's not worth potentially leveraging that pick for a veteran offensive tackle that can come in and be, this high floor, above average option. So Cincinnati Bengals needs, what's great about the Bengals and like a lot of this discussion about how do you get back to the Super Bowl, whether even when you win or whether you lose, there are like, we got to resign this guy. We got to add some pieces here. Make sure this happens. For the Bengals, it's like fucking obvious. It's like, dude, go help the offensive line. T. Higgins is going to be on this football team next year. So is Jamar Chase. So is Tyler Boyd. So is Joe Burrow. This defense is largely kept together. I think Jesse Bates is a guy that they need to prioritize getting back. But like, man, you help this offensive line out, and them being the third ranked team according to DraftKings to win the AFC, I can get behind obviously behind the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs. Baltimore Ravens. They were tied for fourth, actually, in odds to win the AFC next year. Their offseason resources rank according to PFF is 13th. Cap space, $8.8 million. There is some movability there. They can cut Marcus Peters for $10 million, Tavon Young for $6 million, and some free agents that they are currently projected to lose. Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, Bradley Bozeman, and Jimmy Smith. Needs at corner, safety, defensive line, all of which they could be losing this offseason depending on who they cut and who they let test free agency. Am I crazy, though? Like, all those are on the defense side of the ball. I think there are bigger needs on offense, right? Like, I know they have Rashad Bateman. I know they have Hollywood Brown, and Mark Andrews. I still think they need more, right? Like, I don't think they still have, unless Rashad Bateman develops into this in year two, again, this guy that's a alpha 1, 10, 12, 15 target a game type of guy. Like, Hollywood Brown is not that. Bateman hasn't been that yet. Obviously came off an injury and is only in his second year entering 2022. But like, I don't hate adding another receiver for Lamar Jackson, whether that's in free agency or the draft.
I think at this point you got to roll with what you got at receiver, and it's because the way that offense is kind of schemed, you're getting diminishing returns with one way at offense is schemed, and two, just like the routes Lamar Jackson throws. Like, he's works the middle of the field. He works routes that are not necessarily that are kind of schemed open routes, not necessarily like guys winning one-on-one that he needs to find. And I think, like I said, I think Bateman is damn good at winning one-on-one. I think Mark Andrews is damn good at winning one-on-one. I think Hollywood Brown at the deeper levels of the football field is good enough at winning one-on-one. Like, you have enough there. And those guys are all ascending sort of players. We saw Mark Andrews all-pro tight end this past year. Like, those guys are all getting into sort of the primes of their career. So I think offensive line would go a longer way. Like, the running game that they had back in 2019 has taken hits every single year. And now the Ravens don't go out and spend big in free agency. That's not their MO. But they do take advantage of guys cut by other teams. They take advantage of trades when that's available because they are the compensatory pick kings. Have most compensatory picks since they were introduced in the NFL have gone to the Baltimore Ravens, and they will continue to do that. The guy who I think makes like the most, like the guy who I would pair with the Ravens, who just like seems like a very Ravens player to get.
Orlando Brown Jr.?
No, because he wants to play left tackle. He's a blindside. Trey Flowers, probably going to be cut by the Detroit Lions. Defensive lineman, versatile. They need defensive line help. They got old there really quickly with Calais Campbell hitting free agency, with Brandon Williams hitting free agency at their age. Lost Michael Pierce, lost Matthew Judon, lost all the guys in recent years. Replenished a little bit in the draft last year, obviously with Dafe Owe. But Trey Flowers feels like the versatile type of defensive lineman that would go to there. Doesn't count into a compensatory pick formula because he's a likely cap casualty with the Detroit Lions, and then all of a sudden it's back to form. So that's probably where they're going to go. Some help along the defensive line, but business as usual if you're the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think they make too many splash moves.
I do think what's crazy is, like, I think every team we talk about in this offseason game plan thing is like, oh man, they could use some help along the offensive line. Like, there are so many teams that like need help along the offensive line. Everyone's going to be bidding for these guys. I think there's a wrong way to approach it, though. The wrong way, in my opinion, is trading up for, like, say, one of these offensive linemen in the draft, depending on like what you have to give up, right? We always advocate against trading up and getting your guy along the offensive line. Going up and getting like a blue chip offensive tackle, I don't think is a smart way of using resources for Baltimore. But like, I'm of the opinion I will always advocate interior offensive linemen on day 2, guys that you can get starters on day 2 for the interior offensive line, and then chase volume in free agency, right? Go chase average to above average talent. Just don't go out there and like, we have to get Trent Williams or we have to get, Brandon Scherf. That's the only player that we need to lock in along the offensive line to get us this missing piece. Like, no, go get multiple and find who fits your offense and add depth, because depth is almost as important as like skill there. Like, everyone talks about, like, you need a serviceable top 5, no tomato cans. You need like a serviceable top 8 because like so few offensive lines actually get through the season with a clean bill of health. And like you go into the postseason banged and battered along your offensive line, you end up having Joe Thuney play left tackle like Kansas City Chiefs did. Like you need depth at that position, and you can't have obvious tomato cans at that position. I think that's the last time. That's the last time I'm saying it. It's the last time I'm saying it. It's the last time I'm saying it.
I get the genesis of it. It's not. It just doesn't do it for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I do like the Trey Flowers call out though. Where do you have them going in the draft?
That one's tough. They're not. Again, the Ravens don't. They don't go need. Like they are sound decision making. They think over the course of time, over multiple sound decisions, things will even out. And so I don't think that. I think it'll probably be O-line or D-line, just given the strengths of this class. But I don't think they're going to be like, oh, we have to go XYZ position.
Cleveland Browns on our next piece here, ranked 10th in their odds to win the AFC.
Oh,
yikes.
How the mighty have fallen.
That is an absurd fall compared to like media or like preseason expectations even like a year ago. A lot of people
I would love to know where they were at a year ago, but it was probably top 5.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. They rank 7th in offseason resources according to PFF. That's, again, a combination of draft capital, free agency cap space, movable cap space, etc. They have $25 million in available cap space now. With some movements made, they can save $7.1 million in cutting Case Keenum, who could be their best quarterback. I know that's a consistent joke made among Cleveland circles. And their biggest needs, honestly, like this Browns team needs desperately a wide receiver.
Yeah.
A wide receiver. Losing Odell Beckham Jr. and funneling a lot of those targets to Donovan Peoples-Jones isn't it. Rashard Higgins isn't going to develop into this star that they thought he was going to be in like year 5, year 6. They have Jarvis Landry, but he's getting older by the day. Not a true number 1 in my opinion anymore. Like they need help at receiver. They need help on defense. And they most of all need Baker Mayfield to pull ahead of his ass. Like if they're actually going to be competitive in 2022.
Yes. And now they kind of learned their lesson about really going all in, making the splash play for wide receiver. And a lot of times wide receivers look better in free agency than they turn out to be for your respective team. But I do think they have to go get one somehow. Now, I advocate for this year draft. It makes a lot of sense because they'll be in a position to get someone like a Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, I think, with how the draft board is going to fall to where that's just a better play than, in my opinion, than going out and signing an Allen Robinson or someone like that in free agency. The one guy, if I was the Browns, that I would be willing to make a play for, should he become available, is a tag trade for Devontae Adams. That's the one guy I'd be like, okay, that actually can get me there because I think he fits stylistically with Baker Mayfield and that he's not really a contested catch guy. He creates space. Baker Mayfield needs to see dudes open to throw them. Devontae Adams is open as much as anyone in the NFL. So that's a guy that could really help in that regard. But I think the play, if you're the Browns, is one to go somewhat all in, like to put some resources into free agency. You have, like you said, 7th most offseason resources to really go in because this is, again, the last year of Baker Mayfield being cheap. You're going to have to, if he sucks this year, and he could, like it's the thing, like you're running a risk here, but this is it. You tied yourself to it when you drafted him, when you gave him the 5th year option, whatever. It's going to be him. But if he sucks this year, well, then you got to find a quarterback anyway. It wasn't going to happen. If he's good this year, you can win a Super Bowl. If it turns back into what we saw down the stretch in 2020, you can win a Super Bowl. So where I would go is make a play for someone like a Von Miller or a Chandler Jones, a guy that you know isn't going to be a long-term option. But pairing that guy with Myles Garrett all of a sudden is scary for opposing offenses. That takes that defense to another level that is going to matter come playoff time should they get there. So that is where I would go. TBD on what they actually end up doing.
Would you rather have Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson in the draft for the Cleveland Browns? I think that's the most common mock I'm seeing for the Cleveland Browns is one of the Ohio State receivers, obviously with the Ohio connection. You go Garrett Wilson over Chris Olave? I think that, in my opinion, too, like you have it listed in your thing here, wide receiver in the draft, is because you don't know if you're committing to Baker Mayfield long-term, right? And bringing in someone that doesn't necessarily need to be a world beater in year 1, but could develop into this alpha in year 2, year 3 with the quarterback of the future potentially, I think does make a lot of sense.
The interesting thing here, though, is trading Baker Mayfield. It's the one interesting thing. And Brady Quinn actually was talking to him about this during the Bengals-Titans game. He said, who would say no to a Baker Mayfield for Ryan Tannehill swap? Complete one for one trade. Who in that would say no? Do you think one of those two sides would say no?
I don't know.
I'm not sure either side would say no. Personality-wise, Baker Mayfield seems to line up more with Mike Vrabel than Ryan Tannehill does. Whereas Ryan Tannehill seems to line up more personality-wise with Kevin Stefanski than Baker Mayfield does. I think both coaches, I'm not sure, like obviously that would factor into coach decisions, but I do think that is the thing, and both teams could use a reset in terms of like Tannehill's gotten shat on a lot over the past 6 months or so because of just not being able to overcome the situation. And that's fine. He's still a very good quarterback, but he is not, no one's confusing him for Joe Burrow anytime soon. So that to me is one interesting route that I would be very excited to see.
Just a straight up trade for Baker. And I don't think
it's not going to happen. But
the more I think about it, I don't think Tennessee would do that. I don't think Tennessee would do that. Even if like Vrabel likes Baker's fire more than he likes Tannehill personality wise, I think Tannehill is good enough, obviously, for the Tennessee Titans. They claim the 1 seed this year. I think there's bigger issues in the quarterback position.
We're going to need Keelan Fred to weigh in.
Keelan Fred? Where's Keelan Fred when we need him?
The reason being also because Ryan Tannehill's cap hits are $38 million and $36 million next 2 years.
My God.
That's a lot.
So that's a lot. Pittsburgh Steelers, last place in the AFC North in terms of odds to win the AFC. They're tied for 12th. Offseason resources rank is middle of the pack at 15th. Their cap space available is $31.2 million, however. Biggest needs, obviously a quarterback with Big Ben retiring. And then, needs along the offensive line. We've talked about offensive line a ton with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's where they should have went instead of Najee Harris, in my opinion, at the back end of the first round. And Joe Hayden, who is expected to test free agency and is really old, right? Like they need help at corner, and they've had needs at corner really for a long time to get help on the back end. They have obviously a lot of successful pass rushers up front, starting with TJ Watt, but offensive line, corner, and quarterback. You have needs at those three positions. I'll tell you right now, you're not going to be favored to win a ton of divisions in your lifetime. Like those are hard. Those are three of the most valuable positions in football, and they have obvious needs at all three.
Yeah, and the problem is you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that you have good players on this roster. They are all on their second contract, though. You're paying them. So you got Cameron Hayward. You got TJ Watt. You have, I guess your wide receiving core is probably your one strength that's young. You got Stephon.
I really like their receiving core.
Making a lot. And it is good. It's a good young wide receiver core. But that's why I do think that the move I would make this offseason, trade for a quarterback. You can go get Malik Willis, whatever, in the draft. And that was who I mocked him to the last mock I did. But that's a 2 or 3 year window. Those guys, is Cameron Hayward going to be Cameron Hayward by the time Malik Willis is good? Probably not. Stephon Tuitt? Probably not. Like you're going to be in a vastly different spot as a roster. And you just traded all your draft capital to go up and get Malik Willis, sadly. So if you're going to trade your draft capital, do it for a guy you know is going to be good right now. And that's why the move I would make is to make a move for Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr. Whichever one's available that you can go get. But this is a team that already made the playoffs with one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL in 2021. It's good. It's a good team. Doesn't lose too much in terms of the free agents. Joe Hayden, Terrell Edmonds, those are not guys that they're going to miss desperately on this roster. So $31.2 million in space, use it on a quarterback and see where this defense and wide receiving core can get pushed with, like I said, a real quarterback.
I do think that is the shortest path to competing for a Super Bowl, right? Like if they bring in a veteran quarterback, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, or even Aaron Rodgers, go get one of those guys.
I'm not going to say it.
Go get one of those guys to compete with what is obviously a competitive roster and one of the most underrated head coaches in the NFL, like a really, really talented head coach in that staff. I think you're right there. However, you chase this quarterback, right? You chase a Malik Willis, and trade up for him. I do think that is a heavy, heavy risk compared to what do you think Kirk Cousins would cost? A first and what on the trade market? What do you think you're trading for Kirk Cousins? A first and a second?
Oh, no, not with that cap. Not
maybe
with that
just a
contract
second
situation. Maybe just a first.
If it's just a first, what you'd need to trade, in my opinion, to go get Malik Willis is probably like a first and change. probably as much as you need to trade for Kirk Cousins. I would rather have Kirk Cousins and compete now, knowing again that Malik Willis is 2-3 years away. Like everyone has said about him in this class, he is not ready now to compete.
Yeah.
Go compete now with the roster that you have as Cameron Hayward gets older and all these guys get older. Then when you are actually in a position to reset as a roster, reset with that quarterback in mind and potentially in a better quarterback class, right, in 2023 and beyond. I think I'm backing that. I don't think a lot of people have mentioned that as the Pittsburgh Steelers game plan. I think a lot more are interested in like, got to get a quarterback, go draft a quarterback, a quarterback. I like them as a veteran landing spot of the many. Like we've said that with Washington. We've said that with Pittsburgh now. I think we've said that with others as well.
Yeah, so just a hypothetical here. Say you draft Malik Willis, and he follows Josh Allen's sort of career path to a T.
That would be sick.
First, second year, poop. Third year, great. And now that's even of itself is kind of like long shot, doesn't happen all the time, whatever. The best player who's going to be on a rookie deal, and because, again, trading up from Malik Willis is what we're assuming here. You give up, say, what the Bears gave up last year, which is another first, and it was like a third or something, to go up and get that guy. The best scenario for you, or like the best player who's going to be on a rookie contract by then is going to be like Pat Freiermuth and Najee Harris. Najee Harris is not going to be on, or excuse me, Deontay Johnson is not going to be on a rookie contract anymore. Chase Claypool is not going to be on a rookie contract anymore. You're paying every single one of your good players and just have one quarterback on a rookie deal. It's possible to maintain those guys. It's just going to be a somewhat depleted roster by then if you go do that. Whereas right now, you have a window if you go out and get a guy who's ready right now.
On to the NFC North, starting with your Green Bay Packers. I know you have a lot of things you want to say about the Green Bay Packers and what they should do, but before you do, proud sponsor of the Tailgate Podcast. Two sponsor shout-outs. Tailgate Podcast is brought to you by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves, buying your first home, planning to start a family, wondering how to make your money grow. Western Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. Also, you can get 25% off any PFF subscription. So say you just got done going to westernsouthern.com and you just set up your retirement or just bought life insurance, go double down on your support for the Tailgate Podcast and use promo code TAILGATE, TAILGATE, for 25% off any PFF subscription, whatever. Go get it. Draft guide, free agency rankings, mock draft simulator, all that stuff available in your Edge or Elite subscription. Go get it with 25% off, promo code TAILGATE, TAILGATE. Green Bay Packers move to make number one. Cut Aaron Rodgers. I didn't even say trade him. Just cut him. No, I'm just kidding. Right now, they have the third longest odds to win the NFC. They rank third, according to DraftKings, to win the NFC. Their offseason resources rank, however...
Don't they have the third shortest?
Third shortest odds.
There you go.
26th in offseason resources rank with negative $50.8 million in cap space, available cap space. Obviously, some movement needed to be made to help with some of that cap space. Mm-hmm. Some needs at receiver outside of Devontae Adams. Marquez Valdes-Scantling expected to hit free agency in addition to Devontae Adams, depending on how they obviously bring him back. I think he's going to hit the tag. He's not leaving Green Bay without at least being tagged. If he's getting out of Green Bay, he's obviously being traded. They're not going to just let that resource hit the free agent market. Start. You're the Green Bay Packers. You're part owner, part stakeholder.
Yeah.
You should probably kick us off here.
So here's the thing, though. Part of the Devontae Adams thing is that to tag him, they have to be under the cap to tag him, and tagging him is going to be in the neighborhood of 20-something million. So they have to have 20+ million. They have to do cap magic, and that cap magic would involve to just being able to tag him has to involve restructuring Aaron Rodgers' contract or some sort of extension to push his money. 'Cause he has $46 million cap hit this year, so it's kind of going to have to be a collaborative effort. So if Rodgers says he wants out, they have to then trade him to even get that, to tag Devontae Adams. They have to trade him to get Devontae Adams. So they have to do that soon. So any news on the Rodgers front will not last into the offseason like it did last year. It will be prior to free agency and the tag deadline. But they're going to cut Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, Randall Cobb, those guys. That right there can free up somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million in space. So they have ways to get under. It's going to take getting rid of those guys, though, and maybe Dean Lowry, if they really are desperate. David Bakhtiari would be on the chopping block too. I don't think he's going to be. I think they're going to. The report is trying to run it back, Another way to create some cap space would be to extend Jair Alexander and to get his cap number low this year and then bigger in the future because he's on the 5th-year deal this upcoming season. So that's what they've said they'll do. They can do it. They have the opportunity to do it. They're not going to add much to this roster. They're probably not going to be able to re-sign Marcos Valdes-Scantling. They're not going to have a Buccaneers-esque run-it-back scenario on hands. But they were pretty damn good this last year, and they didn't have David Bakhtiari in the playoffs. We're the favorites in the NFC. Like, they don't need much more to run it back. You know, they can win a Super Bowl with this exact same roster if they stay intact next year. That's very possible. And have maybe a luckier bill of health throughout the year. I don't know who wrote biggest need here is O-line. I think their O-line's great if they're at full strength. It's just they're banged up. But if they have Elgton Jenkins, David Bakhtiari, Billy Turner, Josh Myers, and Royce Newman, that's the top 5 to 10 O-line in the NFL. That's a very good offensive line. So I don't think they have a need there. To me, it's just wide receiver. Can they get if they lose? It's
wide receiver and quarterback. I mean, they need to do whatever they need to do to get Aaron Rodgers back.
Well, I'm saying under the scenario that everyone they're able to keep everyone in house, run it back with all the guys. Like I said, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, all happy. He restructures his contract, gives Devontae a piece, whatever. They're all happy-go-lucky.
What do you think the percentage likelihood that is?
I mean, it comes down to Aaron Rodgers. I'm saying they can do it. They have the space. They have the capability cap-wise to do it. It might wreck some future years. They might be tough. They might be eating like a Drew Brees, $10 million 2 years after he retires, like the Saints are this upcoming
Some void year season?
Yeah, some void years. But they can do it. It's just, it is going to mortgage some future success. But again, you were the 1 seed in the NFC. You have an MVP quarterback. You have a good roster that can largely stay intact. So I think that's what they end up trying to do. Can they do it? I mean, it's going to come down to Aaron Rodgers deciding to do it, but then they have to this year. If you're going to do that, you got to treat the draft for once like it is an impact for this year. No backup running backs in this year's draft. These guys
no backup fullbacks, no backup QBs.
These dudes need to see the field. So if that's making a play for Drake London in the first round if he starts to fall, that's what I would recommend if you are the Green Bay Packers is to, if you're really going to go all in, take a page out of the Rams book and realize that it's even after you bottom out, it's only 1 or 2 years to get back into it. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to go all in, really go all in is my recommendation for the Green Bay Packers.
Let's play devil's advocate a bit with the Green Bay Packers and assume Aaron Rodgers wants out. Now, I know that would crumble.
Nope.
I know that would crumble the group chat with you and your mom and your dad and all that stuff. But let's assume the other side of it, right? Let's assume Aaron Rodgers I want out. My thought is, obviously you trade Aaron Rodgers. You're able to get multiple first-round picks, 3+ first-round picks, probably from Denver. You get a top 10 pick included. And then my opinion too is you're probably also trading Devontae Adams. Are you also moving on from Devontae Adams?
Devontae Adams as well.
So you're probably going to get a first-round pick and some change for him, too, on the tag.
No, a tagged 30-year-old wide receiver is probably not fetching a first-rounder.
You think just second, like a DeAndre Hopkins style type of thing? Okay. Well, say you are able to get a second then. You have 3 first-round picks. Let's call it 3 second-round picks with Devontae Adams and maybe some change from the Aaron Rodgers deal. How the hell do you go into this draft? What's an ideal situation for the Green Bay Packers? Now you're like kid in the candy store.
Well, ideal situation is Jordan Love's good.
Yeah,
that's your ideal situation.
But you don't go quarterback. You have to
don't. I mean, you can't. You have to trust that Jordan Love's good. That's why you drafted him in the first place. Now, big if there, obviously, from what he's shown so far. But you just start to build. You're not so good at any position group that you can ignore it altogether. Maybe cornerback, if you extend Jair, is the only one where it's we got 2 starters. We got enough there. But even then, it's if you have that many picks, just add as much talent as you can to this roster and hope, again, like I said, Jordan Love is the guy you thought he was when you drafted him.
If you had 2 first-round picks this year, one that's a little bit later, and then obviously say it's the Broncos at 9, I think you can attack receiver early on, and you can attack edge, right? If they are cutting Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, go picking up one of these edge guys early in the first round. And
I would get Drake London in a fucking heartbeat if I was the Packers, and I had the 9th overall pick. That's who I would draft tonight.
That's a quote graphic. Social's going to be all over it. I love that.
Do not put that out. I hate Don't put that. There's just so deep in the weeds.
It is deep. It is deep. If Aaron Rodgers leaves, because then everyone's going to be like, you think Aaron Rodgers is going to leave? Are you kidding me? I have a Packers tattoo. It's a cheese head on my back. I'm a stakeholder.
They're good at wide receiver.
If you had to get a Packers tattoo.
No better than Alan Lazard.
If you had to get a Packers tattoo and it was the size of your entire back, what would it be? Would it be Aaron Rodgers in the outfit that he wore to accept the MVP with the hair and everything?
Packers tattoo would just say shareholder.
And it just all across your back?
Yeah.
In like the Packers wordmark font?
Yeah, the shareholder font.
There's a shareholder font?
Yeah. I have access to a shareholder store that you
you don't.
Yeah.
Let me see it. Send me a link.
You can't even get a link, dude.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
That's bullshit. I just found it. I just found the shareholder. Green Bay Packers shareholder. Wow.
I have probably like...
Oh, they sell crew necks that says owner. That is sad. That is sad. It's a deranged. It is a deranged fan base. That is a deranged fan base. That is hilarious. Owner. Imagine wearing that. Imagine,
I do. I have one.
You have an owner crew neck? It just says owner of the Packers?
Okay, it doesn't say owner that big. It just... Maybe it does, actually.
Dude, that's embarrassing.
Can't remember.
Oh, you're like a fake owner. Like not even an actual owner. You can't make any decisions.
Well,
you get access to.
You can't buy those. You can't buy those shirts. So.
I love that. I love it. Let's get to the Minnesota Vikings. Talk about a bad division. So the Packers are third, according to DraftKings, to win the NFC. The Vikings are tied for 9th. Bears are 14th, and the Lions are 16th. I mean, even with Jordan Love, Packers could win this division.
Probably should.
Should win this division. All right, Minnesota Vikings tied for 9th right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder how much of that is baking in that they are losing Kirk Cousins, right? Because I think with Kirk Cousins and the lack of stability in the NFC at quarterback, there is some options.
I mean, you haven't gotten to the number here that is why they're tied for 9th also.
Is it because they have minus $15.3 million in cap space?
Yep, that one.
Yeah, minus $15.3 million in cap space, 17th in offseason resources rank, needs everywhere, right? They have not drafted particularly well of late, maybe outside of the Justin Jefferson pick. Like Jeff Gladney did not pan out for them. Cameron Dancer has been up and down for them. Patrick Peterson expected to hit free agency. They need help in the secondary bad. Yeah. And they also think they need help along the defensive line too. Like this defense is not what it should have been with the amount of resources that they dump into adding defensive line talent and cornerback talent. And offensively, there's a lot to like there, obviously. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and they just need to get the quarterback figured out. The offensive line is getting better. They're lucky to have Christian Darrisaw healthy towards the back end of last season. I still think you can add interior offensive line help in free agency and in the draft if you are the Minnesota Vikings. But what is your move to make for Minnesota?
Trade Kirk Cousins. I am trading Kirk Cousins if I am the Minnesota Vikings GM. If I am Kwesi Adolfo-Menso, I trade Kirk Cousins tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, but I trade Kirk Cousins because, one, you get $35 million in cap relief. He is $45 million against your cap this year. It is the last year of his deal. He will hold you hostage if you want to make him the quarterback of the future. There's ain't no hometown discount with Kirk. He has weak ties to the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin City area. This dude will go to the highest bidder next year. He will go to the highest bidder every single year. And it's going to be more than $45 million on his next contract. It's going to be a lot. He's not going to take a discount, like I said. So get the cap space, because if you're committing to him this year, you're basically committing to that dance of every single year of giving into whatever he wants from a cap perspective. And as we've seen, it's just difficult to build a winner around a guy who's not that guy in terms of elite level quarterback. Now he's good, very good, but you need a lot of help on this roster. And I think you hit reset, and I think you flip Kirk, take the power back, maybe draft a quarterback this year, whatever, but have to realize that you're not adding negative $15.3 million in cap space. You're not adding to this roster. This is it. And it was a team that didn't make the playoffs last year. So
I'm of the opinion that the Las Vegas Raiders and the Minnesota Vikings are in very, very similar positions. They do not have rosters good enough to win with the quarterbacks they have. Period. That, in my opinion, means they should look to move on from them, knowing that they likely could get a first rounder in return. Like Sam Darnold was traded for a second-round pick. Carson Wentz was traded for a first if they made the playoffs or whatever. Like it was like a conditional first. Like you can get, in my opinion, there are teams like Pittsburgh, there are teams like Washington that would trade first-round picks to go get a proven veteran like a Kirk Cousins or a Derek Carr, especially Derek Carr, who's not even on as bad of a contract as Kirk Cousins is. Now, if you do trade for Derek Carr, you're obviously positioning yourself to have to give him this next contract, but I don't know. I think both these teams have done such a terrible job at building successful rosters around them, so much that they've fired head coaches, right? So much that they've had to move on from head coaches and move on from different draft picks. Damon Arnett no longer with the Las Vegas Raiders. Jeff Gladney no longer with the Minnesota Vikings. It's time to move on from the quarterback that you put a lot of your eggs, the basket you put a lot of eggs in, to try and finally reset. Because if you do this halfway reset, you're going to be finding yourself looking at Adam Thielen as a potential cut candidate because you don't have enough money to actually pay some of the other guys on your roster, including Kirk Cousins, who's got what, like a $33 million cap hit in 2021? I'm with you. I think the Minnesota Vikings,
It's $45 million.
$45 million.
That's to me is the biggest difference between the Cousins and the Carr situations. One, Cousins has double the cap hit, and two, like Carr has maybe he wants to go get a mega deal, but like that's been Kirk Cousins has been known to really only be like to drive a hard bargain with the money that he wants. Carr may very well take a hometown discount to be with the Las Vegas Raiders. At that point, I think you go ahead and do so.
Yeah, well, Derek Carr is not willing to ask for this mega deal that I think he rightfully deserves because he's literally been like slaving away for the Las Vegas Raiders and like a terrible organization that have done like barely anything to support him. I'd be stunned if he's not asking for $35 million plus on a 3-4 year deal.
Yeah, I mean, like 35 is like the
minimum.
Like that's just what it's going to cost now for I don't care who it is like that you're trying to sign.
Imagine giving Derek Carr $40 million though. If you give Derek Carr $40 million with where this roster is,
it's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough to win.
Yeah.
Anything else with the Minnesota Vikings? I think we spent a lot of the conversation on Kirk Cousins and whether or not to move on from him.
Well, it's just you don't have the space to play too much, and you got a lot of
if you do keep him, right, like there aren't a lot of moves you can make. Like everyone's talking about, like, what's your game plan if you keep Kirk Cousins?
So that's why it's like that's the move. If you don't do that, you're kind of just I don't want to say kicking the can. You're rolling in with the roster you had this year into next year, and praying that Kirk doesn't just walk out the door in free agency.
On to Chicago Bears, 14th of 16 teams in the NFC to win the NFC, according to DraftKings. Offseason resources ranks 27th. They obviously made the big trade up. They made two trade ups. Traded up for Tevin Jenkins. They traded up for Justin Fields. Not a lot of draft capital upcoming.
Yeah.
Cap space, they do have $28.6 million in cap space. Not a lot of movable cap space, though. They could make cuts with Eddie Goldman, $6.6 million. Nick Foles, they could save $3 million with a cut there. Some free agents hitting the market. Allen Robinson is the big name, right? Like, do they tag him again? Do they find a way to bring him back again? I would not be surprised if Allen Robinson has played his last down in Chicago. Not surprised at all.
I mean,
do you think
he didn't even come to play this past year? Let's be honest.
Where's a good land? Let's start there. Where's a good landing spot for Allen Robinson?
I mean, you know where it is.
The Green Bay. Shut up. I think Kansas City.
Jacksonville.
Oh, okay.
Jacksonville Jaguars going back home. That would be
sick.
Yeah.
I like KC too.
I'm not sure he would want to.
I think KC. Go give Allen Robinson to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They tried to make a play for Juju Smith-Schuster last year. If you can go get Allen Robinson to pair up with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, that is money. That would be a dream landing spot for Allen Robinson, right? All 31 other teams would be like, no, that's but like I think that would be an area where he could actually excel. The move to make for the Chicago Bears is what?
This one's tough, man. You would love to obviously get another wide receiver in the fold somewhere. I think maybe draft ends up being where they do that. I think you also could use an offensive tackle. I think they should be firmly in kind of the mid-tier tackle market, whether that's Morgan Moses, Eric Fisher, even Nate Solder, even if you don't love that as a Bears fan, but they have to do something there. But the one kind of elephant in the room is that Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn are taking up $47 million against cap this year. Khalil Mack is going to be 31, Robert Quinn's 32. I don't know if those are pieces to a championship team with where you're at as franchise. And obviously Justin Fields come good would make this roster look a lot different in a lot of different ways. Like but again, you need to put talent around him too. Like you need to get him wide receivers. You need to get him an offensive line. Those guys do not play offense, and they're costing you about a quarter of your cap right now. So I think you got to shop one of them. As much as it's blasphemous to say, you whether it is Khalil Mack or Robert Quinn, get something back in return for one of those guys because they're in demand. They'll be in demand. But like they don't seem like they're going to be Chicago Bears for a championship run when the window comes for this team with where they're at. Can you rely on them at 33 and 34 years old? Can you? I'm not sure.
John Gruden, before he was let go by the Las Vegas Raiders, was making calls reportedly to go get Khalil Mack back. I don't know if Josh McDaniels shares that same interest, but that would be hilarious. One, maybe an option for them to go bring back Khalil Mack. I think there will be teams, though, that are more than willing, because I think you could get Khalil Mack knowing the cap hit that you're taking on for like third. Like you would not have to spend high-end draft capital to go get a Khalil Mack or go get a Robert Quinn, knowing that you're going to have to pay him a shitload of money.
That's the thing. $30 million cap hit this next year, 28 in 2023, 26 in 2024. Now, again, a lot of that's prorated bonus, so that'll be cheaper for whoever does take him. But so I think you can get a little bit more than a third. You could probably get a second and a third, I would bet, for someone like Khalil Mack, which with the Bears and where they're at with no picks this year because of what they did for Justin Fields, those conversations have to be had. Now,
maybe the Rams make a trade,
but if you get a nice little piece, go and break it off.
Rams trade 2029 second and third round picks for why do you think that is a rule though? I guess do you agree that the rule should be that you can't trade draft picks beyond 3 years?
I do. I think it started as a rule from like so that teams wouldn't go belly up or something like back in the day, like way back when, because teams would shoot the moon to trade all their stuff to try to.
I also feel like it protects ownership, right?
Exactly, and then just have a terrible team then after that.
Like ownership hires this GM on a 3-year contract, and he's like, "I'm going to trade our 2030 first-round pick, where I don't even think I'll be GM of this team by then." No, I think that makes sense. The more I actually fleshed it out. All right, Detroit Lions. Last place to win the NFC according to DraftKings. But offseason resources rank at 6th. They obviously have the number 2 overall pick driving a lot of that value. $22.7 million in cap space with some cut opportunities in Michael Brockers, $1 million. Trey Flowers, $10.3 million. Halapuli, Vaitai at $3.5 million. Some free agents to lose. I don't know how much they are priorities. I know Charles Harris is expected to enter free agency, and he had some success with them, but I don't think that's like a priority re-sign for the Detroit Lions.
Especially with who might be available at number 2 overall.
Yes, Aiden Hutchinson, baby. Our king, Aiden Hutchinson.
I hope you don't.
Start the conversation with the Detroit Lions with Jared Goff. What the hell do they do with Jared Goff?
That's the thing. This one feels like just this Detroit Lions team right now kind of feels like the 2017 version of the Cleveland Browns, where 2016 they went 1-15. They had Josh McCown as their starter or to start the season. Whereas like you get a guy who like you knew wasn't good, but you kind of threw him out there as a veteran just to kind of bring that. And then after that season, they just abandoned all pretense and were like Deshaun Kaiser, Cody Kessler, and Kevin Hogan. That's what we're rolling into the season with that quarterback. That feels like what the Lions should probably do here this season. Roll in with, I don't know, who you're going to draft 32nd overall, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell. Roll in with that at quarterback and just see, because you know you're still not there. And just paying Jared Goff $30 million this year. His kick is, you know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get, and it's not good. It's better than probably starting a rookie, but it's better in terms of 6-11 versus 3-14. Like it's that much better. You know you're not getting. They're 16th in terms of odds to win the NFC. Like there is a lot to improve upon for this team. So to me, just trust the process. Draft good players, but take a year off at the quarterback position, basically.
Yeah, I'm not like completely against it, right? But I think the reason you haven't seen a lot of that analysis is because if they cut him, they take on $30 million in dead cap space. Like but it's like it's a better option. The cap wise, it still saves you in the long term. Yeah, of course it saves you in 2023 and 2024, where he's due like another $50 million plus. Yeah. They would ultimately the cutting. If they cut him before June 1 next year, they'd only take on like $10 million dead cap space. Like, what is that? It's like the sunk cost fallacy, right? Like, you're already paying him. Why pay him, in addition to paying him this $30 million to stay on the roster and help your team to 6-11?
Yeah.
Why not cut him, still pay him that money, but then watch Desmond Ridder or whoever it is at 32 take you to a 2-win season, 3-win season. So that way you either are a year into finding this next quarterback or a year into being bad again, not feeling all that confident in Desmond Ridder and being in prime position to get a CJ Stroud or whoever it is going to be at the top end of the 2023 NFL draft.
Yeah, basically what I'm saying is don't let Jared Goff have any dead money on the books when in a year where you think you can actually compete. Basically, don't let that contract affect you when things could actually be good. Because right now you know they're not going to be good next year, and not lightning in a bottle. Shit, they could be good next year, not next year as in 2023, but 2022 is not going to be the big turnaround. So at that point, and Jared Goff's not the quarterback of the future.
Yeah.
So like, at some point you got to.
But okay, can you put a number on Jared Goff's energy and his leadership and what he means to
draft a
the
fiery
culture?
Quarterback.
Desmond Ritter's fine.
Des Ridder. Sure.
I like Des Ridder. I like Des
fiery
Ridder.
dude, by all means.
The Detroit Lions are just in a bad place. It's tough. It's tough to say the move to make. With Detroit Lions.
So that's the move, and then, like I said, trust the process in terms of drafting. Like draft, go out, focus all your resources on scouting good players in this draft, on vetting these players, because that is going to be the lifeblood of your franchise. This is a very crucial draft with the amount of draft capital you have in building for the future. Don't go sign Allen Robinson because you have a need at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Don't trade.
That should be obvious.
Don't trade for Devontae Adams. It's like, yeah, that's an upgrade. That also does nothing for you. Like go build it because the cap space will come once you build it. There's something there.
What'd you say?
If you build it, the cap space will come.
That's terrible.
That's not bad. It's from.
I know what it's from.
Like, there's something there.
What you can't do in the situation where you are literally 16th of 16 teams to win your conference, you can't go out and buy all this lipstick to put on a pig, right? Like you can't, you put a Devontae Adams level lipstick on this pig, it's going to be gross. Like you're going to spend too much money, spend too much draft capital on what is ultimately a team that could maybe go from 16th long. Like say you got Devontae Adams and Allen Robinson. Where do they move in odds to win the NFC? 14th? Maybe 15th? Maybe they don't move at all. Maybe it doesn't move the needle at all for this Detroit Lions team because they still have a bad quarterback and they still have a bad roster elsewhere. Commit to the pig. There's my saying. Put that on a shirt. Ooh. Commit to the pig. Cut Jared Goff. Don't let the sunk cost fallacy leave you from like, hey, we don't want to pay him $30 million for nothing. No, move on from him so you can play somebody else. Play a rookie. Play someone where you actually have some opportunity to learn about a potential future option at the position because Jared Goff obviously isn't it, as evidenced by like why you even have him on this roster. So go in and get rookie at the back end of the first round. Hell, even in the second round, right? Like go get one of these second round guys. So that way it's not a first round commitment that you're moving on from, say, if you do like one of these quarterbacks in 2023, move on from a second or a third round commitment that takes you to an 0-17, 1-16 season.
Sean Kaiser.
And again, put you in this prime position to actually rebuild this roster.
Go trade for Jordan Love, actually. There you go.
Oh, okay. That's going to do it for the offseason free agency game plan. Please go to the YouTube comments. That's the easiest way to get feedback on these episodes. If you want us to add, subtract anything to these game plans, we're going to continue to do this division by division, 2 divisions per episode, really over the next couple weeks, or I guess week and a half or so. Let's get to the delete your tweet segment. Reminder, the delete your tweet segment, which is new to Tailgate for you Gators, is where we look at a tweet.
Taters.
It's not taters. It's not taters. I refuse to call the audience taters. It's Gators.
I like taters. Taters.
No,
it's
taters
like
is ass. Taters is the worst name.
Taters.
Somehow you took this bad name and you're like, how do I make it worse?
I've leaned into taters.
I have not.
Okay.
And no one else has either.
That's fine. I'm calling the audience taters.
Delete your tweet is where Mike and I look at a tweet or something that we've said on social media or an article that we've written that we wish was deleted from the internet's existence. You go first.
Do I have to? This one's poop. This one really stinks.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
And this
the reply is also very good.
This one still applies. We're not going to read any of those replies.
No, your reply.
I know. That's what I said.
No, we're definitely reading those replies.
I'm not even looking at them right now. But this is a tweet from 2019, April 4th, in fact, right after J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who I let it be noted, I was off him as soon as I found out his name was pronounced Arcega instead of Arcega.
Fair.
So that was post-draft. That's on me. But he ran a 4.49 as pro day, had a pretty good pro day, and I tweeted out, there is still room on this bandwagon, folks.
When he ran the 4.49 at his pro day? Yeah. Oh my gosh, there it is. Quinn putting it up on the YouTube for the fellas. There's still room on this bandwagon. I think I might have retweeted this.
There still is.
There is still room on this back
It's gotten room
Quinn,
here.
for the people, could you scroll just to the couple replies from Mike Renner? Size or speed, size, strength, hands, exceptional releases, and the best body control in the class. He's a first-round talent, in my opinion. Arcega-Whiteside to Jordy Nelson might be my favorite
Spot the
comp
lie.
in the draft. Look at one more reply, or no.
Spot the
My
lie.
reply was a "Let's go" meme. You probably can't see it. It's probably a ways down, but I was on board with you. We watched that tape together in the hotel.
That one hurt.
That one hurt.
What happened there?
That was bad. That was bad.
I need takes on what happened there.
Arcega-Whiteside. There's still room on the bandwagon.
I need a 30 for 30 on his career.
My delete the tweet is actually a screenshot of an article I wrote when I was a blogger for Just Blog Baby in college. They paid me so much per article, $0. It was $0 per article with an expectation of writing like 4 articles a day, which was lit. Got a lot of experience that way. That article that I wrote way back when, early in Derek Carr's tenure, week 2, I think, of the 2015 season, why Matt McGloin should start over Derek Carr. I thought this was a big reason for that was Derek Carr hurt his finger or something, and you didn't want to move him like into it. But I was also like, this was like, if you read the article, don't go back and read it. But if you do, I was like, Derek Carr hasn't shown it. His rookie season wasn't that great. Let's see what Matt McGloin has. He's shown some more fire. I was ready to jump off Derek Carr as a quarterback of the future for the Raiders as soon as week 2 of the 2015 season.
And nothing has changed since.
And nothing has changed since. Well, you say delete the tweet, but if they moved on then, they might be in a better position than they are now. They probably would have won more playoff games. Hard to lose less.
Well, hard to win.
Hard to win more, I mean.
Harder to not win.
I think that's what it means.
Fewer.
But yeah.
Harder to win fewer. There you go.
I'm of the opinion that actually I kind of want to take that away from the segment. If the Raiders started Matt McGloin and moved on from Derek Carr in 2015, they probably would have drafted one of these other really good quarterbacks in that time because Matt McGloin would have lost every game.
Next year was Jared Goff.
Okay, so they probably would have had Jared Goff and they would have gone to a Super Bowl.
Done nothing.
No, I'm just kidding.
Done zilch.
Or Carson Wentz.
2 more years, they would still had a first round pick. They draft Baker.
Gosh, maybe it's better off this way.
They would have then gotten the first overall pick again this year, and
Joe
that's
Burrow.
where you
When
get-
would they have gotten Joe Burrow? That's the question.
Timing wise,
what layer
every
of the
2
universe?
years is when they would have been taking it, and it wouldn't have been Burrow. It would have been, like I said.
Raiders are doomed. My column. All right, now on to, we did this last week, the generational prospect bracket. We started with running back, which I think is a fantastic one. This one's a little bit lamer, not as
just
sexy.
Obvious, you know.
Oh no, yeah, and this one's
So we
super
don't
obvious.
have. So we can kind of breeze through it. But so to go back over the conceit of this generational interior offensive line press, we've done 8 years of NFL draft analysis, college grading. 8 years is enough for a bracket. 8 years is also about an NFL generation. If you have an 8-year career, that's a full career in the NFL. I think you have a pretty nice vested pension at the end of that. So we take our top prospect from every single year at the position group. Running backs, Saquon Barkley won. Big surprise there. Interior offensive line, I think we know who's going to win. But here are our top prospects from each year. Back in 2015, we had Brandon Scherf, the Iowa offensive tackle. And it still makes me upset that 2015 we didn't put out a big board. We just put out a mock draft. It was because we finished so late. But so we don't have actual ranks for that year. Even if they would have been shit, I still want to go
They would have
back
been
and look.
terrible.
But we did in that first mock draft. Trey Flowers, first rounder. Gray Jarrett's first rounder. Haven't had a good call since then, but there we
hate
go.
to see it. Peaked early.
Peaked way too soon. Now, Brandon Scherf was the top guy there. I think we had him somewhere in the first round mock. We called him not a tackle. He was pretty clearly not a tackle coming out of Iowa, even though he played tackle there. 2016, Cody Whitehair, Kansas State offensive lineman, left tackle there.
He's still tripping around the league now.
He's got a second contract with the Bears. He's been solid. Was better at center, and they kind of moved him around a bunch. And he got hurt, and whatever. It hasn't been as good of late, but it was much better as a center than he was a guard. Forrest Lamp, back in 2017. Quentin Nelson in 2018. Elton Jenkins, the Mississippi State offensive lineman, 2019 was top interior lineman. 2020 was Tani Muti out of Fresno State. 2021, Elijah Vera Tucker last year out of USC was top interior offensive lineman. And then Tyler Linderbaum, our top guy this year. So
who were before you get into this, who were the 2 interior offensive linemen that the Los Angeles, I think at the time was the San Diego Chargers maybe. Who did they draft that everyone was like, Dan Feeney and Forrest Lamp? Like, this is the interior offensive line for the next 10 years.
Little did they know.
Both would be shit.
San Diego breeds bad offensive linemen. They're born there. So, all right. So the way we do this, 2015 goes up against 2022. And then each incremental inside of that. So first up is Brandon Scherf against Tyler Linderbaum, a little Hawkeye matchup here. And I know which way I'm going. What say you, though?
I'm leaning Tyler Linderbaum. I think Tyler Linderbaum would be the bigger generational prospect. I think there's part of me that wants to lean Scherf just because there's like that.
Because he's good now?
Well, no. Also, there is more guard tackle versatility with Scherf than there is with Linderbaum, right? Like there's some guard center versatility, but like he's like 99% sure going to play center almost exclusively, right? So part of me feels that you could lean Scherf from a versatility perspective, but the way that we have been talking about Linderbaum, I think exceeds, and how everyone has been talking about Linderbaum, I think exceeds what Scherf was.
Yeah, Tyler Linderbaum takes that for your boy. So Tyler Linderbaum moves on in the 1-8 matchup. 2-7 matchup here. 2016 against 2021. Cody Whitehair, who was 17th on the PFF draft board back then, going up against Elijah Vera Tucker, who came in 21st last season on the PFF draft board. Obviously went higher than that. Whitehair lower than that. Whitehair was actually better as a rookie, graded out better as a rookie than Elijah Vera Tucker did, though. So what say you on this matchup?
I'm leaning Elijah Vera Tucker, actually. I think Elijah Vera Tucker, in addition to like a lot of people feeling that he has this like ceiling potential to be a road grader in the run game, like everyone is so comfortable with his floor as a pass protector coming out of USC. So much, I think a lot of people like overlooked Elijah Vera Tucker in the scouting process in 2021 because everyone felt so confident that he'd hit these marks, right? Like no one was calling him Quentin Nelson, which probably teases who ultimately wins this interior offensive line generational bracket, but everyone was high on him, right? Like I think his consensus ranking among media analysts was one of the highest and one of the lowest standard deviations of anyone in the previous class.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Back when Whitehair was ranked 17th, we were very grade focused. That was a big reason why we were high on him. And don't get me wrong, I still liked his tape, but in terms of projectable traits, it was pretty clearly like Elijah Vera Tucker, more powerful dude. Cody Whitehair famously did only 16 bench reps at the combine. It was only 301 pounds, and it was damn near 24 years old when he was drafted. So there were some, like, if you're talking about the, physical red flags, he had those far more than an Elijah Vera Tucker did. So, yeah, I will give the nod. And last year's class, 21st in last year's class, we've talked about with how many quarterbacks were ahead of him, with how talented that group was. 21st was still a damn good prospect. So, Elijah Vera Tucker getting
the new guys leaning in here.
All right, 2017 versus 2020, the matchup of two guys who definitely aren't fucking winning this generational offline bracket. But Forrest Lamp, 27th on the PFF draft board that year. Netani Muti, 37th on the PFF draft board that year. That actually was the lowest of any of the guys on this list. Bad interior offensive line class 2020. If you go back and look, Michael Onwenu is the only above average graded starter on the interior offensive line from that class. Dude went in the 6th. So not a ton of talent. Our board that year went Muti, Jonah Jackson, Cesar Ruiz. Cesar Ruiz obviously came off the board as IOL 1. He's been rough for the New Orleans Saints. Jonah Jackson, probably the second best interior offensive lineman from that draft so far, but Tiny Muti, some spot starts down the stretch for the Broncos, maybe in line for a starting job next year, TBD on that. But who are you going with here?
I think Forrest Lamp. Forrest Lamp coming out, man. Do you remember the shirtless photo of Forrest Lamp when he was getting drafted? Maybe it just was on my phone or photoshopped by me. I don't know. But I remember Forrest. That was like maybe it was just a viral photo among my friends. I don't know. Now I feel we're talking about it. But this guy's like shredded, and I remember everyone like talking about Forrest Lamp as like this like next generation interior offensive lineman. In 2017, I think there was more of a consensus on him being like a first round type of player than there was with Muti. I think we were like one of the only outlets even high on Muti. Like Muti, I don't even think would be generational among media outlets at all.
Again, that was a tough interior offensive line class. And yeah, Forrest Lamp was pretty clearly the top prospect.
I Twitter searched Forrest Lamp shirtless and found nothing. This could be a dream. I hope not.
I think you have a text thread with him.
Let's see. I'm going to keep looking.
It's definitely Forrest Lamp for me. I loved his tape. He's one of the most head-scratching misses of... Now, again, he came in and tore his ACL, I want to say. Immediately got hurt. Never came back from that. Some guys that it's not, as much as, everyone glorifies Adrian Peterson, modern medicine, wow, ACLs, it's nothing. Some guys don't. Some guys, it is enough to really affect them in their career. So TBD on if that was the case. I'm not so sure, but Forrest Lamp was not good, as we said he would be as 27th overall prospect. Now, on to the heavyweight bout here. Quentin Nelson from 2018 against 2019 Elkton Jenkins, who came in 26th on the PFF draft board that year. Quentin Nelson was 4th overall. That dude was the best. Okay, I'm giving it away here. That was the best college tape I've seen from an offensive lineman. Like, positional doesn't matter. He was insane his last year at Notre Dame. Obviously, carried over to the NFL. Sad that Elkton Jenkins, who I love coming out of Mississippi State, had to go against him in the first round. But I'm not even going to ask your opinion here. It's Quentin Nelson.
Duh. I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah. All right. Next matchup, we got the 1 versus the 4. And the 1 purely being, or I guess the 8 versus the 4. I don't know. We put ranks on these because to go along with the year that we did at PFF, just for ease of use. But we got Tyler Linderbaum going up against Quentin Nelson. So Iowa center against Notre Dame guard. And I'll just say these are the 2 best guys we've seen in the PFF era in terms of interior offensive linemen. Those are my 2 favorite.
What? I know we were really high on Frank Ragnow. What was that the same?
Ragnow was Quentin Nelson's year.
Oh, okay. That was about to say.
Ragnow was Quentin Nelson's year. Isaiah Wynn was Quentin Nelson's year, who we saw as possibly a guard as well. Like, that was good interior offensive line class. If you need a guard / center,
I think Ragnow would be better than a lot of these guys on this list. Like, if you were able to get 2 from an era, or not era, for sure. 2 from a year.
That was a good class. But we're doing 1 a year because if you weren't the number 1 prospect that year,
you weren't generational.
How the fuck could you be the generational prospect? So
there were actually 6 generational prospects in 2015. All right. Obviously, leaning
slow
Nelson.
Down. Leaning what?
Nelson.
Yeah.
Linderbaum's great. I get it. And it sucks to be out in the round of, what is this? The second round of this generational prospect ranking. But you run into a buzzsaw here. Nelson's on a warpath.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably favored by 10 in that matchup if we're looking at March Madness here. Have we told the people about our 4 TV setup?
Oh, we have not, because it's not technically set up yet. But you tried to throw a wrench in that we immediately.
The wrench is fixed.
Yeah, fixed.
We've ordered 4 58-inch TVs for the house that we're living in now. And it's going to be on a shared wall in the living room. And we are planning to have it ready for March Madness, the first round.
Yeah.
That is going to be fucking sick.
It's going to be sick. So
that's the generational interior offensive line bracket.
Every like 18-year-old me when I was 18 was to have that.
Me now.
Did not have the funds then. Now it's still my dream, and we're gonna
we could watch Tailgate on a loop, right? Like start one and then start one like 20 minutes, like 10 seconds after.
We can watch every episode in a week.
I like
all at once. All right, Elijah Vera Tucker against Forrest Lamp. This one's tighter than the last matchup. Even Elijah Vera Tucker, like I said, very good, 21st overall prospect. Forrest Lamp, I love though. The game against Alabama his senior year shut down Tim Williams, who he himself snuck in the NFL. So maybe that wasn't the takeaway I thought it should have been at the time. But I am leaning Elijah Vera Tucker here. I think he was just you did it against better competition. Forrest Lamp at Western Kentucky was great.
Yeah, I think it's Vera Tucker.
Still good and only 27th overall prospect that year, ABT, 21st. And now we got Quentin Nelson against Elijah Vera Tucker. And Quentin Nelson, to go back to just how dominant he was, pull up some stats here for you fellas. But I believe he had the highest graded guard season we've ever had still to this day.
I think he might be up there too in the NFL. Like his grades in the NFL have been like among the best that we've ever seen.
92.0 run blocking grade, 90.9 pass blocking grade, 5 pressures allowed all season long. And that was back when they used to just 2017 was, gosh, who was that in the quarterback genesis? I think that was early Ian Book. Was that? It was early Ian Book. And they would just take forever in the pocket, and it was brutal to watch. But that Notre Dame offensive line was insanity back. 2016 was the year where they had McGlinchey, or maybe 2015 they had.
Didn't they win a national title that year?
Yeah, they did. They had McGlinchey. That was the year, actually. It was 2015. And it was the year they lost Stanford in my story that I told about the girl leaving me at the bar. But they had McGlinchey, they had Ronnie Stanley, they had Nick Martin, and they had Quentin Nelson.
Jeez.
Still the best college offensive lineman.
Who was the 5th guy, the loser?
The 5th guy was their right guard. His name is escaping me right now. He ended up quitting football to go into Congress, and he's like congressional aide or something. What was his name? And he was a highly recruited dude too. He was like he's like a high 4-star. He was like a top 100 player, and he ended up leaving. He ended up retiring from football. He would have been like a late drafted dude. He was fine, but definitely not on the caliber those guys were.
How's he doing in Congress?
Couldn't tell you.
Fellow Golden Domers stick together.
Steve Elmer was his name. Had a 71.3 overall grade that year, so he was
Screw
fine.
Steve Elmer. If you're not as good as Ronnie Stanley and the other guys, who cares? You know what I mean?
Let me see his rivals profile. Steve Elmer, 2013 offensive tackle, 4-star. Oh yeah, 60th overall player nationally. Was the worst player on that line.
Wow.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes for the Irish.
I'm a fellow Golden Domer. I'm taking classes. All right, that's going to do it for the Generational Interior Offensive Line bracket. Until next time, guys, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Review it on Spotify. Review it and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. And you're supporting Tailgate. Then go to pff.com and use promo code Tailgate for 25% off. That's called support. And wait till you see this merch come out. The Gator merch is going to be sick. Until next time, Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, Tailgate.